probably instead. Hello, just letting you know you're muted.
Hey Wilson, how you doing?
Mute.
We haven't started yet, so
Oh, my bad, my bad.
no worries, no worries. No, we just I was giving a few more minutes. There's only one person hearing you, so we'll give another couple of minutes and then we'll start, okay?
Hello, Sir Kays. I'm here too. This is
Hey,
Quasi.
Father, good to go. We'll give a few more minutes and then we'll get going, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. Um, All right. All right, hope everybody's good tonight. All right, let's get started. Real quick. So, it's on the Zoom and the class. Don't forget this week, your title justification is due. Again, all it is your title and why, you basically are choosing that topic. I think it's probably in, it should be in there, but whatever the instructions say in the title justification, then roll with that, okay? Aside from that, anybody got any questions about grades, anything like that? No? Okay, cool. All right, so this week, we're just gonna discuss is the project scope management, okay? So this is one of the more critical areas that we're gonna look at, right? And trying to figure out, when you think about, all the things that entail a project, depending on the size of the project, that could be very daunting, right? And so as a PM, you have to be really organized, but in order to be organized, you have some tools that can help you stay on the path and not get derailed by certain things, right? And so when we talk about the scope, we're really discussing what are all the things that need to get done, right? What are the deliverables and the processes that we're going to, endeavor on in order to meet this project, right? And so all that stuff is basically identified in the scope, right? When you hear scope of work or SOW, statement of work, sometimes you hear that in the project management. All they're really saying is like, look, these are the things that we are looking to get done. Come in. Hey, these are the things that we're looking to get done in the project, and so let's identify them so that everybody's on the same sheet of music. Everybody's on the same sheet of music, and that also, anytime you want to reference back to the scope, you can, right? Because it's very easy to get lost, and deviate from the scope if you're not really paying attention to it, right? And that's okay for the team members and that kind of thing, right? If they don't necessarily understand the whole scope, right? But as a project manager, you have to understand the whole scope. You have to understand every detail about what's going on, what needs to be done, the processes involved, and all the deliverables. And depending on which approach you have, right? You may always be delivering something if you're using an agile or adaptive approach where you're delivering a product or some some kind of, end thing every couple of weeks, right? And giving it to the person, the sponsor, or giving it to the client so that they can say yes or no, and then make sure you're going in the right direction, right? Kind of like a draft, sort of, okay? So again, project management, project scope management, right? Just in defining and controlling what is and what not is not included in the project, all right? And so again, just basically trying to make sure that everybody understands what is it that we're doing here, right? What's our end goal, right? And then from there, we'll break down the subtasks, right? How we need to get more specific now as to what we're doing, okay? And so this is where the project scope management aspect comes into it, okay? And so the main process within the project scope management piece is, of course, the project scope management, okay? One, trying to figure out, what the scope is gonna be and what the requirements are, okay? And so really, the project scope and requirements are dictated by the client, okay? What does the client want? What is it that whoever said, hey, we need to do this project, who asked for this project, right? Because I need to ask them, what is it you're looking to do, okay? I need to know in very specific detail, kind of like, hey, I want this, I need a system that does this. It needs to be 24/7. It needs to run at this speed. It needs to, be accessible to X, Y, Z, right? So you kind of identify the requirement, okay? The next thing is collecting requirements. Okay, so how do I collect the requirements? Well, there's a number of ways to do that. Okay, we'll get more into that. Got defining the scope, right? And when you define the scope, you really look at the charter, you look at the requirements document, organizational process, assets to create a scope statement. Okay, again, this part you're probably going to be doing directly with whoever is that asks for the project. Okay, because again, all the requirements, all the details of what this project's supposed to be about is going to come from the customer, because they're the one that's asking for it. You just happen to be the one that's in charge of the resources to make sure that it happens, okay? Next thing is creating the WBS, right? Basically, the WBS is the work breakdown schedule, okay? This is where everything gets outlined, who's doing what, when they're doing it, where they're doing it, and how much money they're getting to do it, right? If there's any money associated with it. So gets down to, smaller bite-sized pieces where it may be more focused on you and what you're doing, right? It will be, okay? It's gonna say, boom, X, person X on team member one is doing this, this, and this, which is the first week. Team member two is doing this, this, and this, which is the second week, right? And every week, or however the PM decide they want to increment the schedule, that's how they're gonna do it, right? So that's what you get WBS. And then validating the scope, right? Formalizing acceptance of project deliverables, all right? So you have to have some structured way in which you say, look, every first Friday of the month, we're going to deliver something to the customer, okay? But before that happens, what do we need to do within the team to make sure that the product our goal was, right? That we met that goal before we present it to the client, before we present it to the customer, okay? And then controlling the scope, controlling changes to project scope throughout the life of the project, right? Another important thing, right? Making sure that people aren't changing things and adding stuff that's outside of the scope. Okay, this is extremely important because you'll get something, and I think I mentioned before, called mission creep. When things just start like, you're like, okay, this is not part of the scope. Like, who added this? All right. Why are you doing this? Well, I thought it looked nicer, or I thought it'd be faster. Well, is this part of the scope? Was this a requirement? Like, no. Okay, then don't do it. Right. This is one of the areas where you have to be very specific and stick to that. All right. If it says it needs a 9-volt battery, then that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna get a 9-volt battery, not a lithium battery. Ask for. The customer asks for a 9-volt, ask for a 9-volt, but if you can recommend something that might be more efficient and better, then we're open to listening to that, but for our stuff, we need a 9-volt battery, okay? So you wanna kind of stick to that, but you really wanna keep abreast of all these, kind of side changes, right? Any changes that need to happen need to formally come through you, right? There has to be a process in which you say, look, if you're going to do something different than what's outlined in the scope, then you need to put a formal request in to me as the project manager and say, hey, project manager, I'm working on this part. And I come to a juncture where I need to make a decision about, which piece of steel to use or what type of, material to use. And there's 3 choices. I know what choices that we have outlined in the scope, but I found 2 alternatives that might be more efficient and cheaper. Can I talk to you about it and see if we can possibly pitch it to the client and say, look, we found something that's cheaper, better. Can we switch it out, right? Because we don't necessarily know what the client's gonna do with the product at the end of the day, right? And they specify the requirements, they're doing it for a reason, right? So we have to be careful with that. So that's an important aspect of it. All right, just a visual overview here, nothing crazy, okay? All right, so how does the project team kind of, get together and figure out the scope and requirements, right? And so, again, it's all about collecting the data, okay? Data collection is always the key to pretty much everything, right? I need to garner as much information as I can from the people that are going to be affected by the project, whether that be the marketing department that needs a new system, or HR that's implementing a new HRIS or new payroll system, right? I need to sit down with them and say, look, what is it you want the system to do, right? And I'm not just talking about like process payment, like specifically, do you want it to, look pretty? Do you want it to have batch reports? Do you want it to be able to individually query for certain things, right? What is it that you would like to see on the landing page? That's those kind of things, right? That's all data, that's all information, okay? And so, you kind of sit down with folks, and then you kind of, do your data analysis. And then from there, what you get is kind of like the scope management plan and the requirements plan. Okay? Basically, what we're doing, right? And then the specific task or things that we need to do to get to that, all right? So the requirements plan really drives everything, okay? The scope is just more the broad brush, hey, this is what we're trying to get to instant. We like a system that does da 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 da. Okay, great. Now we get to the requirements. All right, it needs to be 13 inches, or it needs to be blue, it needs to be, it has to have my name on the front. I need a picture, those are requirements. That's a requirements plan, right? And as you see, as you look at your requirements plan, you start to assign people to certain tasks, right? And then as the tasks get done, you check them off, right? But you need to have that. So those are the two things really when it comes to the planning scope management that you're doing, all right? You're getting the scope management plan, you're getting a requirements management plan, and those two things will help you with the project scope and keeping that pretty much pretty good, right? So prepare a detailed project scope statement, okay? So this right here is going to be kind of a pain in the butt, okay? The project scope statement, because that is really a summary of what's going on with the project. And so it needs to be comprehensive, it needs to be detailed, it needs to be specific, but it needs to be succinct. It can't be super long unless it has to be long, right? It needs to be long. It needs to be detailed enough to where somebody gets a good idea of what it is that we're doing, right? So this is always kind of like a pain in the butt. It's kind of like doing an abstract, sort of, right? That's what it is. It's an abstract, right? Because it just sums everything up, right? In the beginning, this is what we're looking to do, the middle, and then the end product, okay? So if anybody that reads it, they don't have to read the whole document. They just read the statement and say, okay, they're working on a project for marketing to enhance, customer feedback or whatever. I don't know, something like that, right? All right, so then you create a WBS, work breakdown schedule. Maintain and approve the WBS, okay? So this could change, right? The WS is a dynamic living document, right? It basically has everything that everybody's doing, when they're doing it, how they're doing it, all that good stuff, right? All that stuff, basically, the PM does, all right? You sit down with each of your team members, depending on their particular expertise, like, okay, this is what's required of, on this aspect of the project, right? So you're gonna do this, and this, and then we need to figure out when in the timeline we need you to do that, and how much and all that stuff, because it may, be interdependent with another part of the project, all right? So we'll sit down and figure that out, right? But the approval of all those things go through the project manager, right? Because the project manager is gonna be in constant and direct contact with the client, right? And the client's gonna say, look, we got a few more weeks added to the year or whatever the case may be. So instead of June 10th, you could deliver something July 10th, right? So it means the PM be like, great. I probably will go to the person who's working on certain parts of the project, but like, look, you have until the end of June, not June 10th anymore. You got extra 2 weeks to do it, right? Knowing that I have to give it to the customer July 10th, right? So I'm gonna tell my people like, hey, you got an extra 2 weeks, not the whole month, right? And so I would approve that and change that, right? But I'm managing the work, the WBS. Right? Obtain formal acceptance of the completed project deliverables, okay? So as you start to, go through different phases and hey, we're making a cup, right? And we have this cup as a prototype, right? That we're gonna show you, right? And then you take it in and you show the client, like, hey, this is the cup we're looking at, right? It's just the base. We haven't really done anything to it yet. Do you like this shape? Do you like this handle? Do you like the material? Do you like the feel? Right? The client or customer must say yes or no, right? Because that way you can kind of figure out, okay, do I need to switch it up, or what do I need to switch it to? Or if it's yes, like, okay, we can proceed to the next phase of things, right? But you need to get an approval, right, of some sort that says approval or disapproval, right? But something to let you know, like, okay, am I going the right direction? Am I giving you what you want, right? Are you expecting so far what you've expected, or does that meet the bill? Or does that fit the bill? Yes, that fits the bill. Perfect. Okay, let's move on. All right, and then control request for change to the project scope, excuse me. So again, it's the changes to the project scope usually come from the client. They don't come from internally, they come from the client, right? Because if you're on the team and I give you these tasks to do, you're just gonna tackle them. You're just gonna be like, okay, cool, I need to do this and that. Not ask too many questions. The way you do it, the way, if it's a coding project or something like that, nobody could tell you, there's a bazillion different ways to visualize something, right? There's different lines of code. You can use a number of ways. I can do lists, I can do a dictionary, I can do a number of things, right? When you talk about Python, right? Do a bunch of stuff. I do function, I can do a class, there's a bunch of stuff, right? But the client is gonna come in sometimes and be like, hey, I'd like to change something. Like, all right, what is it? We may not be able to change it, or if we do change it, it's gonna put us back a few weeks, all right? But what is it you want to change, right? And try to keep those at the minimum, but all those changes should come through you as the project manager. They shouldn't come through the engineering department or the marketing department or anybody else that is on your team. They should come through you, right? And if you are working, let's just say one of the team members is working with the client, and the client says, I'd like to change this and this and this, and what do you think? You know what? I'm gonna annotate it and I'll talk to the project manager about your request, and then we'll see what we can do, right? Because again, this goes back to the timeline and the client understanding, like, any changes you make are gonna impact the delivery time, could impact the quality, right? And definitely gonna impact the cost, right? So you must be ready for the increase in the budget, right? If you don't want to increase in the budget, then you should minimize the number of changes you want to have, right? The more changes you have, the more likely the budget's gonna go up, okay? And clients, typically, when you tell them that, they are usually, okay, fine, I don't want the change. Unless it's something that they feel that is gonna bring an exponential benefit to the project, right? And saying, look, I know it's gonna cost me extra $10,000, but you know what? It's gonna make the customer experience better. More people are gonna come in, and I'll make that $10,000 up in no time, okay? The benefit is worth it if the costs go up, right? I'm getting a lot more benefit for my dollar, right? Than if I didn't do it, okay? All right. And so now the requirement management plan, right? The book of knowledge, okay? If you want, you can pull it up on the internet. You might have a copy in the book. I don't know. I doubt it. But take a look at it. It's basically the Bible for the project management. Okay. If you go get a PMP, a project management professional certification, like I said, it's a big deal to get one. If you have one, that pretty much puts you ahead of a lot of people as far as jobs. Just ready for projects if you have in addition to your regular degree, or what you regularly do. Requirements management plan and document, right? You want to see how, things are analyzed, documented, and managed, right? And so, it helps you plan, track, right? Report requirements, perform configuration, prioritize, use product metric, and how to trace and capture attributes and requirements. Basically, The requirements management plan is everything you need to do, but at the very sub level, right? Hey, I need to paint the fence. Okay, no problem. Now we look at the requirements, right? When do I need to paint it? How much is the paint gonna cost? How much paint do I need? Right? Am I painting on concrete? Am I painting on the grass, right? Am I going to need to put tarps down, right? Those are the things that you've seen in the requirements plan, okay? Whereas the scope is just very broad, right? Paint the fence. That's easy, right? I can paint the fence, but then when you get down to the details of it, what kind of brush am I gonna need? Or do I get one of those spray things, right? What type of weather is this fence gonna be in, right? Are we in a hot environment? Are we in a cold environment? Are we in an environment that has 4 seasons? Are there other things that need to take consideration as far as like HOA, right? And other rules that the block or the city may have, right, for fences, right? Certain businesses have to have certain types of fences, right? Houses can only have, a certain type of fence depending on the homeowners association. So there's a lot of things that go into it, but all of that will be garnered and documented in the requirements management plan, okay? How to prioritize requirements, excuse me, trace and capture and how to use product metrics, okay? Basically, you're trying to, measure, evaluate the success of whatever product it is that you are delivering, right? Whether it be in phases or you wait to the end to deliver it, okay? All right, just a quick stat here, 49% of survey respondents had resources in place to do managers. Requirements managed properly, 50% failed to use a formal process to validate requirements, all right? All right, so, I would say that doing requirements validation is probably, there's no way around it, okay? You have to do it because you need to see what's been done, what hasn't been done, right? And is it in line with the scope? Okay, not doing that is to your detriment. You're going to fail if you have no idea that you did A and B and you did A and B, all right? Now we're duplicating efforts, redundant. We just wasted money and time, all right? So we need to be very specific about understanding, who's doing what, when they're doing, how they're doing it, right? And how all these other things interrelated, right, to each other, right? And so companies, put a lot of emphasis on making sure that they have all the resources there to make sure that, when people are looking at requirements that, hey, we are making sure that we hit all the thresholds we need to hit and we're good to go. All right, excuse me. All right, collecting data, okay, or collecting the requirements, all right? As I said before, interviewing the stakeholders, all right, is the number one thing that you're gonna do. After you talk to the person who, commissioned the project, then you're gonna go, hey, I need to talk to the people that work for you. I need to talk to your team. And you're gonna sit down, you and some other folks, right? And they're gonna sit down with each team, not each team member, but the pivotal ones, right? The ones that are important. And like, hey, okay, what do you use your system for, right? How do you want it to look? Just kind of, get as much information as you can from the stakeholders, right? And figure out what is it that they're looking for exactly, right? Because the different stakeholders, they're gonna have different perspective and opinions on things. And they're gonna, not really understand the background of a lot of things, right? Let's just say you're doing an IT project, but it's for HR. HR is not really gonna understand the protocol and the background of a network, right? They just know that the HRIS works, right? They know the information system works, they don't know how it works, right? And so they're gonna ask for all kind of stuff. Well, when I come in the morning, I wanted to say my name and say, how you doing? And then I wanted to pop up here and then I wanted to automatically generate this report every Friday, those kind of things, right? I wanted it to automate as much as it can. Nowadays, that's what it is, right? So, or it's just a matter of, hey, we're implementing this software and we need to teach everybody how to use it, right? And so we're gonna do the teacher program or something like that, right? But either way, you holding focus groups and facilitating workshops, again, along the same lines with interviewing stakeholders, but this is where you have, everybody together. Okay, and you kind of get a consensus or an idea of like, okay, all right, so everybody in the room says they want it to be blue. Okay, cool, we got that figured out, right? Whereas if you're doing individual stakeholder meetings, someone may say, oh, one stakeholder may say, I want it red. I like red, and the other says, oh, green works really well, right? Okay, to really kind of focus in on, what is gonna work, you probably need to talk to the whole group, right? And kind of just, when, before the product comes out, let's just say like, any product really, new food, a new pair of shoes, a new TV show, right? They do focus groups. The focus groups watch the movies, or watch the shows, they watch the pilot, right? This is the point of a pilot. They watch the pilot, and then after it's done, they get in the big room and they just ask some questions. The director, producer, the broadcasting company, they ask the audience like, hey, what did you think about this? Did you like the characters? Which character stood out the most to you? Could you easily follow the plot? Were you confused about anything? What don't you like about it, right? They have all these questions that they ask, right? In the focus group. And you'll find that you start getting these, what we call buckets, right? These things that are common throughout the whole group, right? Everybody in the group says they hated this character. Everybody in the group says it was too long. Everybody in the group says this part was confusing, right? Or majority, right? Not everybody, but the majority, right? You start to see majority and minority preferences. And then from there, you can kind of tweak the product and say, okay, we're gonna take all this back with us and we're gonna make some cuts, some edits, okay? And then what you see at the end, us as consumers that aren't involved in the focus group, is that all comes from previous people that have seen it already and have given their input, that they've taken and, okay, let's cut here, cut there. People don't like that scene. Nobody cares about, I don't know, I don't know what new movie's out. I have no idea. Right? Nobody cares about this or that or whatever the case may be, right? Let's cut that out. Let's put this in. Let's focus here more on this, right? So that's what they get from the focus groups and the facilitated workshops, all right? Using group creativity and decision-making techniques, all right? Again, when you have a team of folks, having their opinion is important, okay? But not everyone's opinion in every particular topic is important or relevant, I should say. Right? It's important, it's not relevant, right? I don't need the HR person I have on my team talking about engineering stuff. What do you know about engineering? Nothing, okay? So you might want to sit back and wait for your turn and just focus on what you're doing, right? But you want to make sure that you lay out, hey, how do we make decisions when we are working on our particular aspect of the project, okay? Because again, they may come to a point where they see there's an alternative, or maybe they see that what they're being asked to do is going to lead to a dead end. Like, this is not gonna work. Like, we could try it 80 different ways, but what they're asking for in the scope, this requirement, it's not feasible. This is a couple years out. Like, it's almost to the point where everybody's familiar with Mark Zuckerberg, right? And the metaverse, right? Okay, so this is his thing, right? But honestly, we don't have the technology as far as the people, not enough of them that understand this enough to build the metaverse the way Mark Zuckerberg wants it. Okay, it's gonna take a long time to get it to that point, right? But again, he's putting in place where he says, look, if we're gonna do anything with, if we're gonna do anything, right? The process for making decisions is you look at it, does it fit the requirement? Is it fit within the scope, right? Is it going to cost more than what was budgeted, right? And then come to me as a project manager and say, look, the client said this to me, or I've come to this juncture to where, hey, this is what it is, and I need you to help me, make I need you to make a decision, all right? But that needs to be formalized in the sense that you need to have a process for everyone to use when it comes down to you making a decision. Because what you don't want is to be sitting in your office and then people just come when they feel like coming to talk to you, because you got other things to do, right? You got a lot of people outside. Oh, I need to talk to you. Are you on the schedule? Are you on my calendar? No, I just need to talk to you about this thing, you know? Like, okay, so there needs to be a formalized process when it comes down to the decision-making aspect, right? Utilizing questionnaires and surveys, right? That's another way of collecting data, okay? And this probably is really what we consider methodology, right? The approach to how you're going to collect the data, okay? And so that's an important aspect. You like questioning and surveys is cool if you're not in the same physical space as the people, right? I prefer focus groups and workshops because you get more detail, you get more background, and you get more, just more information, right? But if you give a questionnaire or something, one, you got to design the questionnaire and survey in the right way, right? So that's survey design. Secondly, is that you have to automate it somehow or make it electronic, right? Because you don't want people writing stuff down, because one person's penmanship is great, another person look like chicken scratch. I don't know what that word is, okay? Third, you need to be able to go back and reference it and look at it and just kind of like, okay, the person said X, Y, Z, whatever the case may be, and you can always go back in case you forget, right? But you get more of an in-depth answer when you do focus groups and workshops, right? If I was just doing a questionnaire where it says, on a scale of 1 to 5, do you like this color, right? It doesn't really, it gives you, something, it gives you an idea, but it doesn't really get deep into really what that person is really wanting, right? Scale of 1 to 5, yeah, 4 is I like blue at the level of 4. Okay, what does that really mean? All right, for me, right? Do you really like blue? Do you prefer blue over light blue? All right, or sky blue? What kind of blue we talking about, right? You get all that more in a focus group where you're sitting there, you're talking to them one-on-one, you just get deeper information. So it's better, in my opinion, if you can do it, you can facilitate it because you guys are all together physically, or you can get on Zoom or something like that, right? Questionnaires work great if you're geographically separate, right? If you got a project you're working on and they're in Italy, is the time difference, you send them a questionnaire to kind of get an idea, okay, what is it that you guys are looking at, right? What's the requirements? How, what is it you want, right? So that works, right? Because you can get the information, and it could be open-ended questions, but most times you're gonna get the best results if you do a questionnaire survey. You're gonna get the best results just doing a straight up either Likert scale type thing where you just kind of like saying on a scale of 1 to 10, tell me what you think about this, right? And then you have some open-ended stuff where it's like, okay, cool, this and that, okay? Conducting observational studies, okay, as a PM or even as a team member, you may just go, sit down and watch, right? You tell the person, look, I'm not gonna ask you any questions. I just want to see what you do in a day. Like, I want to see what is it that you do with the system, or what is it that you do with the report. Don't mind me, I'm just gonna be shadowing you, okay? And you sit there or you follow them around all day and you just kind of observe, or you can do it from a distance. You can be sitting at one desk and then they're at another desk, you just sit there and you're just watching them, taking notes, right? Kind of like a sociologist, right? Anybody know what a sociologist is? Sociology, the study of people, right? By archaeology or anthropology, right? And anthropology, archaeology is the study of previous societies, right? Sociology is the study of present society, right? So I want to see the behavior, exhibiting in your natural setting, right? And so I'm doing a project and I just kind of want to see how we do stuff on the regular. I just may observationally take some notes while, you're doing whatever you're doing. Could be 5 minutes, could be 5 hours, could be 5 days. It all depends on what it is I'm trying to get to, right? And so observational studies are very useful because people behave, you get people to behave the way they would normally behave because they think no one's looking. Right? In their natural, most comfortable, kind of demeanor, right? If I tell you, hey, look, I'm gonna be sitting here, I'm gonna be watching you, and I'm just gonna sit right behind you and just sit there. Makes the people a little nervous, right? Like, great. Now I can't surf the net like I want. I can't do anything I used to do or I normally do. All right. I gotta make sure I'm working. Everything's good. That's what I do on a regular basis. When it's not, because I really want to get an idea of, okay, what do you really do on a day-to-day basis, right? I know you don't sit here all day. You're just doing that because I'm here. Okay. I'm not gonna tell on you. I just want to see how you operate because that will help me better understand the process and where I need to change and what things I need to do based on what you want the product to be, right? And what the end state is, right? If I know what the current state is or the status quo, that helps me figure out what it is that I need to change to get to where you want it to be, okay? And then generating ideas by comparing specific project practices or product characteristics, basically benchmarking. So when you look at, kind of like how people are doing one thing, so you may want to implement a system that, hey, I was in Google and Google did this. Okay, cool. I'd like to see that here. Like I like this, that system was really good. If we could get it here, that'd be plus. Okay, well, I don't know what that is. So now I have to go do research as a PM or whoever is doing that aspect of the project, right? But you can benchmark, right? Or, hey, look, I saw this somewhere. It'd be a good idea if we send someone over to this company and let them take a look at the process, right? We used to do it all the time at Toyota. Ford would come to Toyota and they would look at how we did manufacturing, right? And how the plant worked. And there was something that Ford did really well that Toyota we send a team to Toyota, to Ford, and they would see some of their processes and nothing too crazy, right? Because they got to protect all their intellectual property, intellectual stuff. But they would just look at on the surface, like, okay, oh, it goes through here, it goes through here. Oh, we don't do that. That's interesting. Why do you guys do that? Because da da da. Well, why can you guys do that? Well, we have a supplier that's over here that does this, and this. Like, oh, you think we can talk to your supplier, right? Because that's more business for them, right? But it could also be to where if I let you get to with my supplier, that may cut down the dedication or the the exclusivity that I have with my supplier, right? Because if I'm giving my supplier 100% of their work, and then here you come along and you require 30% of my supplier's time and product, that means you just took 30% away from me. Okay, and I may not want that, right? Although it would benefit the supplier because suppliers get more business, right? Because now they're doing business with two people or two companies, they may not necessarily want that, right? So benchmarking is kind of strange sometimes, but for the most part, it works really well. Okay. But again, comparing different ideas, different approaches, right, within the group. Okay. And just saying, look, we used to do this at this company where I worked at, right? And I'd like to do it here for this particular project. Like, okay, well, lay it out for me. Tell me what the ins and outs of it are, what's it gonna require, things like that, okay? All right, so, what is this? Limited code defects to improve part quality and, okay, so, relative cost development phase, design architecture. Oh, okay, so this is just a cost benefit or cost analysis here of each particular phase. All right, and how much it costs to do that phase, okay, or actually how it's cumulative, I see, okay? So I mean, building a system, okay? Design architecture, implementation, integration, custom beta, and post-product release, right? Basically, all the spaces that we already talked about, okay? Initiation, planning, executing, monitoring and controlling, closing, same thing, okay? Same thing. It's just more of an IT focus or more into, with how the money's being spent, you should be pretty much close to whatever your budget is, right? Whatever it is that you are trying to spend the money on. But at that point, the post-product release, they've got it $3,000 or whatever it is, okay? And so you can see the kind of the cumulative effect, and you can see where the most money is being spent, or where money is being spent, how it's being spent, and what phases. Alright. Alright, so just an example here of a entry in a requirements matrix, okay? And so when you have, requirements management plan, it will come like in a spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet, okay? And then we just call it a matrix because it has, different dimensions to it. All right, it has, left, stuff on the left, on the y-axis, has stuff on the x-axis. So wherever they meet, all right, that's important, all right? So here we have a matrix, different pieces of data, all right? And so we have an identifier here, required number 32. The name is laptop memory, category hardware, right? And then the source, project chart, and corporate laptop specifications, right? This is important, right? Where can I tie this part into, right? The status, complete laptops order meet memory requirement, right? All this stuff is all linked together, okay? And it goes back to requirement 32, which goes back to something in the scope, okay? Which more than likely means back here, okay? This is part of somewhere in the scope, you're gonna see, something about requirements for the laptop, okay? But this requirement here is tied directly into the scope, okay? So you get to see it, it's just a visual depiction of what's going on and kind of see, all the requirements. And the requirements are pretty, the requirements management plan can be very, it's gonna be super long. I mean, it's gonna be pretty big, right? But again, you'll break it up into different phases, or you can break it up based on who's doing what, right? Whatever it is easiest for you to manage, right, as the project manager, you're probably gonna do it that way, right? And also, what's the easiest for people to be able to understand it and read it and follow it, okay? So it's usually better to have the requirements and collectively all in one place, right? Requirements 1 through 1,000. And then you also have it broken down into phases or sections, right? So you need to have it. So here, what I would normally have, and it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. I'd have this requirement, but I'd also have some additional piece of information, right? I would have who's in charge of it, how much money did I budget for it, right? And I'd have something to where, where I was like, okay, client approved or not approved, right? If applicable, right? So I'd have a few more things so that when I look at it, I know exactly what I need, all right? I know who did it, when they started, how much money they spent, was it complete? And at the end of the day, did the client approve or disapprove if they needed it to, right? If we're doing an agile or more of an adaptive approach to the project, right? Let's see, best practices that they have, how Google test software, right? Do not rely on testers to ensure quality, right? And do not believe in fads or buzzwords, all right? So this is kind of like a weird statement, right? Do not rely on testers to ensure quality. The testers are there to make sure that whatever it is that you have or you're looking at, it does what it's supposed to do. Okay? It's what's the word I'm looking for here? It's reliable. Reliable or valid. I can't remember. Either way, I have to remember now. I gotta go back and remember all this stuff. The testers are just there to make sure that, hey, if it's supposed to, if it's a hole supposed to squirt water, it squirts water. Okay. Now, it may squirt water and it may just be, or does it squirt water, right? When I press it, does it squirt water, right? The tester's not there to tell you whether or not it squirted water well or poorly. Did it squirt water? Yes. Okay, so it works. Okay, now it's up to you to go back to the requirements in the scope and say, hey, is there some specific thing that says must be able to project 10 feet out? Or does it say something that where it's supposed to, be able to control the pressure, right? Is there some pressure requirement that it's supposed to have on the holes, right? So you don't count on a tester to ensure the quality, right? I'm counting on a tester to make sure that it works. I count on quality control to check the quality, okay? After I've built it, it works, functionally works, right? Then I go, okay, how well does it work? Right? Does it work, okay? Does it work great? Does it work according to what was specified in the scope and the requirement, right? If it meets the mark, cool, because it may not meet the mark. It may do it, but there may be some design tweak. You're like, okay, it's supposed to, be a hose, and we're supposed to squeeze it and it should go out, right? But it doesn't. It kind of, and it drops, right? So it's coming up short. Why? Is the tube not big enough? Are the rings and the things inside prohibiting it from projecting out like I want it to? Like, what's wrong with it, right? But you don't want to rely on the testers, okay? And you don't believe in fads or buzzwords, right? Including agile, right? Especially in IT or the tech industry in general, right? Because it changes so fast, right? And so one of the issues that you're gonna run into as a PM and working on projects, if you ever work on projects, right? Is that people are going to, be focused on things that are like not current, but things that are like the newest thing, the newest fashion, sort of, right? Like everybody's stuck on AI. Okay. Oh, we gotta get AI, we gotta do AI, all right? But they don't really know what AI is, right? They don't know which AI platform is relevant for them, right? They don't no idea, right? They just know we gotta use AI, right? You don't want to get sucked up into that because just because it's there doesn't necessarily mean that you need to use it, right? If you have a business and you have what benefit is AI to someone who owns a car wash business, a mobile business, right? Let's just say I have a mobile car wash business, I have a truck, a van, all the equipment's in the back, and I wash cars. I got 15 vans. How's AI gonna help me? It's probably not. Okay, it's probably not. If AI is gonna help me, I probably need to have a car wash then, right? Being a mobile car wash detailer, AI is not gonna help me except maybe on the admin side and controlling all the accounting, automating some stuff, maybe automating appointments and that kind of thing. AI can help with that, or customer service, right? That help, but actual physically washing the car and getting that done, there's nothing AI is gonna do for me, right? And so you don't want to get caught up in a lot of the fads and that's kind of the stuff that's going on, especially in tech because of the speed it moves and it changes. Things are obsolete very quickly. So you have to really figure out what am I going to use that is, sustainable and is going to be around for a long, long time. Okay. So, man, you guys may not be familiar, I don't know, but you guys are IT, right? Everybody here familiar with SQL, right? Social security language. All right. How long has SQL been around?
Long time.
A long time. Okay. Now, there's always talk about why do we need SQL? Like this more advanced languages is, you know, like why do we still have SQL? SQL is the number one used language for business, right? Because it's simple, it's straightforward, right? And it's great, right? If you really know it, you do a bunch of stuff with SQL, but all the queries are ran by SQL. Any company you go to, they have an SQL manager, they have a DBA, a database administrator, right? Who knows SQL, what they're doing, build the architecture and all that stuff, right? But now we have Python, right? We have Ruby on Rails, we have PHP, we have Java, we have C++, all these languages, right? Why do we still need to use SQL, right? It's because it works, right? And companies have built their infrastructure around SQL, right? So now if I get rid of SQL, that means I have to get rid of all the infrastructure, all the stuff that goes with it, including the people, right? Because people very specifically, I mean, if you know one language, you probably know another one, right? But so what they've done is now, right? You can use SQL with Python. You could use SQL with Java. You could use SQL with C++, right? SQL is universal. with any language for the most part, okay? You just get, because you're using it for data extraction, right? I got my database, I need to query it, but once I get the information and put it into my new environment, I could program it with any language I want, right? I just need the interface, the IDE or API, whatever, to make sure that they can talk to each other, okay? So you don't want to get caught up in things that are just kind of passing fancies, all right? So you gotta be careful with that. What time is it?
6:30.
Okay, great. All right, so important elements of a project scope statement, right? Project scope description, product user acceptance criteria, detailed information on project deliverables, all right? So the project scope system we talked about before is really an abstract, okay? It's a summary of, hey, what's going on with this project, right? What does this project entail on a general broad level, right? Wave tops. We're not going below the waves, right? We're kind of staying up top. It looks cute or it looks very peaceful and then kind of like, like a duck sort of, right? Duck looks very calm on the surface, but underneath the little legs are going a mile a minute, right? Same thing, all right? So we want to describe the product scope, okay? We want to make sure that we have a good description and detailed depiction of what is it that we're doing, right? What's the product supposed to look like or what's it supposed to do? What markets is it going in, right? All this other stuff, right? Product user acceptance criteria. What are the things that the marks that we need to hit for the person who commissioned the product, the client, right? For them to say, yes, we like this, we're gonna accept this product, right? Because that's what happens at the end of a project. The client or the customer has to accept the project. If they don't accept the project or the product, I should say, at the end of the day, then why? Do we need to go back, right? Fix something? What is it? But they have to accept it, right? They don't accept it, then we got some issues, right? But that shouldn't happen. They should accept it as far as like at the end, right? In between, they may not accept it, but that's when you go back to the drawing board and say, look, they didn't like, they didn't like this part. Let's do something about this, right? And then after we fix this, we put it back in front of them and say, hey, okay, we accept it now. We're good to go, okay? But there has to be certain criteria outlined by the client, right? That says it needs to have A, B, C, D. As long as it has A, B, C, D, we're good, okay? Use of the document other scope related information, of course. Hey, the truth is, anything you do within the project, you want to document, okay? Because that's gonna save your butt in a lot of things, right? First thing, if something goes wrong and you have it documented, you can always go back and like, okay, this is what happened or that kind of thing, right? Secondly, you can't remember everything. If it's documented, again, you can go back and you take a look at it, refresh your memory, we're good to go. Third, in case there's some legalities, if you have it documented, hey, look, customer called me at 10:05 and they said that they wanted to change XYZ. I spoke to customer acknowledged that there would be an increase in cost and that increase in cost was authorized by them, right? Documented, and this is the day that I spoke to the customer, right? Or if you have email, something like that, right? That counts as documentation also, but if you have a phone conversation, a lot of times it's hard to document that because you have to ask permission to record them, right? Or, if you do record it, but you're not gonna record all these phone conversations, right? Fortunately, we communicate a lot via email, via text nowadays, or just via document. And that's what I recommend is that everything that, you discuss or talk about, you document it via an official project management document, all right? Whether it be a piece of paper and this is how you make changes or this is how you annotate things, boom, you put it in the file, right? You archive it or you scan it and you have a folder on your computer, like, oh, changes or, things I need to make sure I know, but you document everything, right? You can never over document, okay? It's better to have too much documentation than not enough, right? Because there's gonna be a point in time where there's gonna be some conflict. Someone on your team is gonna do something that not within the scope, not within the requirements. And then the customer is gonna say, hey, why is this costing me an extra $250,000? And then they're gonna look at you as the project manager, like, yeah, why is it costing them extra? What did we do? And you're gonna be, oh, well, Jim over here, you might not throw him on the bus like that, but you're gonna be like, well, one of the team members made a decision, got this instead of that. And that way, yes, you're overall responsible, but at the same time, they're gonna be, okay, Jim screwed up, all right? Okay, fine, we'll take a hit on that. We'll figure it out with Jim, but that should be no concern to the client, right? But if you have some legalities and you go to court, right, over some kind of contractual issue, right? You need to have the documentation and say, look, this is what the contract says, this is what the scope says, these are the requirements, and this is the documentation here that shows that the client approved these particular changes, or they asked for this, or, which is more important, I notified the customer of a change I made because what they wanted was either breaking the law, was gonna break the law, or went against sustainability, environmental things, regulations, right? And it was in the best interest for us to do it this way, to avoid any penalties, fees, fines, and any exposure from the government, right? Or from the city officials, right? We're doing it in accordance with regulation XYZ. Okay, so we made that change. And that way you can show like why the justification as to why the rationale, as to why you did certain things. Because you just saying it is okay, but if you have it documented and you go to court with that, that's better. Has more validity. It'll show that, okay, like this person just didn't make this stuff up. They annotated it when it happened, and they had this document that proved that this is what they wrote down, right? Now, I'm not saying that that's 100% true, right? I'm not saying that what's in the document is true, but the fact that they have it documented and you don't have your story documented, it's it kind of got to go with what I see black and white, right? And why they did it, right? If it's a rationale like that where it's an avoidance of legal exposure, then you're gonna want to do that because people take companies to court all the time. They sue them for whatever they want to sue them for. Okay, didn't meet the contract obligation or breach of contract or whatever the case may be, right? So you need to be able to defend yourself, and documentation is the best way to do it, right? So as time progresses, the scope of projects become more clear and specific, right? So as you go on with your project, just like anything else, you're gonna have a deeper and deeper understanding of what is really going on, right? You're gonna be more familiar with it. If you didn't know anything about quantum mechanics, right? You're gonna know something about quantum mechanics when you're done with the project, right? It just kind of just the way it is. You're learning as you're going, right? And so as you're going, the scope and the statements and different things that are required are gonna get more detailed, right? Because again, you're gonna be further along, and you're not just gonna be at this cup anymore, right? Now you're gonna be at this cup and it's gonna be blue. You're gonna be at this cup, it's gonna be blue, and it could be microwavable. Cup, blue, microwavable, and it's shatterproof, right? So now, as I'm moving along, I know a lot more about this cup, right? Week 1 here, week 5 here, right? I know a lot more week 5 than I did before, right? And so when I talk about it or when I write about the product, I should be able to write in more specificity, right? I should be more specific as to some of the characteristics of it, what it entails, right? If someone asks me for a new, or not a new, but like an update on like, hey, what's going on? Do we need to change the scope, whatever, or are we, on track with everything? Like, yeah, good to go, right? And so you see the project scope statement where, as time has gone on, right, the first version is very much like, oh, servers, additional servers required to support this project, whatever the case may be, right? Statement 2, right, or version 2, I should say, requires person 10 new servers to support web network, application, right? Virtualization will be used to maximize efficiency. You see how it's just more detail, okay? This is very broad, right? Just to servers, compatible with existing servers, very broad. Now we're saying we need 10 servers, right? What they're specifically gonna do, okay? and then where we can find all the relevant information that we need, for it, okay? All right, inaccurate retirements gathering continues to be one of the main cause of project failure, right? Organizations need to develop people, process, and culture to improve requirements and management, right? So I'm gonna tell you this right now. Garbage in, garbage out. Okay? All of the other aspects of project management are important. Collecting the requirements in the most efficient and most specific way, right, is probably more important than anything else, all right? I could have a great project initiation. I could have, a great planning cell, all right? I can execute well also, right? But the problem is like, what I'm executing is not the right thing. Okay? I'm not, they said they wanted this cup, white, whatever the case may be. And then here I got a blue cup with a funny handle, and we're making them. Okay, and then when the customer sees it, like, that's not what I wanted, right? And you can see it on their face, like, I wanted something white, just simple. I'm gonna be selling this in Walmart. It's not going anyplace fancy, right? Just need something basic, right? And that's not what you gave me, right? But why am I confused? Because when I was doing the requirements, right, I wasn't specific enough, right? So part of the requirements collecting is asking questions, right? Because again, the client may or may not know exactly what they want, right? In most instances, they kind of know, they have an idea what they want, right? But you being the expert, right? Not necessarily the project manager, but you having a team of experts, you know some other details, some finer details about things that are out there that the customer wants, but you have different options, right? You know what you're talking about. You're the subject matter expert, as my engineer or as my marketing person or my HR person or my operations person, right? On the team. And so, the customer may not know what to ask, right? Or the customer just says, you know what? Whatever you guys think is the best, we'll roll with that, right? But you, as the project manager and the subject matter expert, need to be able to ask the right questions in order to collect the right information, right? To get the requirements down. Because if you get a bad set of requirements or a poorly written set of requirements or identified set of requirements, and you execute on those things and it's not what the customer wants, guess what? We gotta go back. We gotta go back and do the requirements, the collecting of requirements all over again because we didn't get it right the first time. You know what that means? Extra $50,000, $100,000. Okay, it's extra $1 million. It's an extra, 3 weeks. Okay, it's extra frustration because now I'm going back to the same people I spoke to earlier. I need to talk to you again. Like, I don't got time for this. Okay, you talked to me once last month. I gave you all the information that I had. Well, we didn't, it didn't turn out right, like, we didn't get what we really needed, so I need to ask you a few more questions, right? Kind of like how lawyers do sometimes, right? Lawyers will talk to you 2, 3, 4 different times, right? Because again, things are shifting, right? New information is coming in, and so the lawyers need to react to that. But in business, right, in project management, collecting the requirements upfront is extremely critical, right? Data collection is extremely critical, and that's gonna serve as your, really your guiding light, as to how you execute the particular project, right? And again, garbage in, garbage out, okay? But if I have good stuff to put in, I'm gonna get the right product, or at least the product the client wants, right? Because it's not really about what I want, it's about what the client wants. The client could very well ask me for a cup that I put in the microwave and it blows up or it breaks, right? Okay, that's what you want. I give it to you, right? Because again, I don't know what this person's gonna do with it, right? I mean, I kind of know because they'll tell me when I do the requirements session, but at the same time, they may have some other stuff that they're not telling me. They like, you know what? Maybe we could branch out next year and then we could use it at like, I don't know, an amusement park or something, or an object to throw at somebody, right? There's Anybody ever been to a, what's it called? As a bash room or a
The rage room,
the rage room, yeah, the rage room, right? Anybody been in the rage room before?
I know about
You
it.
know about it? Okay. So you may want to use it in a rage room, right? A rage room is when they have a bunch of stuff in the room and you basically put a, helmet on, some glasses, and they give you a hammer and you just break everything. It's a way to release stress and anger and that kind of thing, right? So people do it all the time, but I did it once. I didn't like it. It was weird. Just breaking stuff. It's not my stuff. So and I didn't even get the satisfaction I thought I would get. It's like, man, that's not good. And I paid for it too. That sucks. So, but you don't know what the client's gonna do with the product, right? So you gotta be really specific with the requirements. And I'm harping on this because this is where the project goes totally wrong. If you don't get this part right, your project is already done. Okay, you can do everything else, or you can execute well, you can control, monitor well, you can plan well, you can do all that stuff, right? But if you don't have the right requirements, you're not going towards the proper goal, right? If I'm supposed to be going this way, but I'm going this way, I'm never gonna get to the destination. Right, and that's pretty much what it is, right? So I need to know what is the destination, what is along the road there, right? What are the things that where are the places we need to stop, right, before we get to the end? Right, so you have to get that right. Let me see, all need to develop people, process, and culture to improve requirements management. Yes, okay, we know that already. All right. All right, what time is it?
6:47.
6:47. Okay, let's take a quick 10 minutes. Come back 7 o'clock on the dot, and then we'll continue on. Okay.
That's.
Thank you. Oh, bang. Oh. Let's get rolling. Okay. So next thing we're gonna discuss here is the WBS, the work breakdown schedule or structure, I should say, okay? All right, so when you look at the work breakdown structure, basically, it's a tangible, physical, somewhat physical, summary of everything that needs to be done, right? As far as like per person, per location, per cost, whatever the case may be, right? It has all that information on there, okay? And basically the work schedule or structure, it breaks down the bigger task, a bigger overall mission into small pieces that can be assigned to each person, right? And who's doing what, when they're doing it, and that kind of thing, right? So basically, just really trying to get, an idea of like everything that I need to get done and who's doing it, right? And also with the WBS, when you create it, you also create, they call it WBS dictionary, right? Sort of like, okay, I have this structure or this schedule that I set up and with everybody, what they're doing and what the end state is for each particular task and how it contributes to and how it's related to the objectives or the mission or the scope. But I also have a dictionary that defines certain terms, right? That defines what maybe, if it says in the allocated time period, what does that mean? Allocated time period for this project means every 5 days or every 3 days, right? So we have a definitional dictionary that outlines specific terms or concepts that are related to the project, right? And related to the work that needs to be done, right? And those two things go together. What we got going on and then kind of an explanation of some of the terms and things that are outlined within the breakdown structure. All right. All right, so kind of, work breakdown structure in, by level, okay? Again, level one, internet, right? So that's just very broad, okay? This is the big overarching, again, wave top stuff, right? Level two, it breaks down into each particular component of that particular, intranet, okay? Web design, landing page, the resources that we need, right? So we kind of break down level two. And then level three, you get into the more detailed information, right? Now we have a website design, but then we have the sitemap, we have the graphic design, the programs, hyperlinks for each particular thing, right? So it's more specific as to, what happens at each level, okay? So if I'm looking at assigning work, right? I'm really looking at levels 3 and 2, or I may say, hey, I'm gonna give this intranet thing level 1 here, that's you. And then let's sit down and we'll talk about all the associated, the sections to it, and then under each section, what needs to be done, okay? All right, so here's a bigger one, okay? So product release, and this is one that's pretty relevant, right? This happens all the time, all right? All right, so you got the project management piece, right? You got the project requirement, the detailed design, construction, integration, and testing, right? You have the different phases of the project, all right? And then so level 1, level 2, level 3, okay? And so you see as you get down to level 3, and even then, once you get to level 3, right? This will break down to level 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, depending on how detailed you want to be, in the planning, but it's definitely gonna go further, right? But then what it allows you to do is, again, I can assign certain people to certain things, right? John is in charge of this, right? And John has a team, his team is 15 people, okay? All right, John. These are the different phases or different aspects of the project, all right? You assign your folks based on their skill set or what you think, would be the most advantageous for us as far as like leveraging what they know. And then from there, right, that person is going to, kind of go down here and say, okay, and then John will sit down with each one of these people and then map this out because whoever he assigns here, they're gonna have their own team, right? They may have three people that, hey, I have somebody that does planning, I have somebody that does meeting, I have somebody that does the administration, right? Or I have someone that does software, user documentation, training program, or I have one person that does all of it, right? It all depends, okay? So, but you can see where, very much so where it's easy to see what's going on, right? And be able to explain to the client or to whoever it may be, that, hey, okay, we're here, and then, hey, this is the different phases, and these are the things that, the areas we're gonna be focusing on, right? These are the phases or the sections we'll be focusing on. And then from there, if they have the question about, more specific things and they wanna know more, you can discuss that, right? But as just a general note, just like, hey, this is what it kind of looks like, and again, this is not the, let's say standard, it's just an example, right? But you want to do this, right? You're gonna have to do this, right? There's no choice on it, right? So here it is in Microsoft Project, okay? Now this is real, okay? This is what it looks like in Microsoft Project. A little bit more upgraded because it's from 2016. I think they have a new 2022 version, or I think 23. Yeah, I can't remember which one it is, right? But you can see how it opens it up and then it starts to break it down, right? Into the days, right? The task name, the task mode. So all these little drop downs, they all have different information in them, right? They could be populated with, you have a different table with everybody's name on it, right? And what they do, what team they're on, that kind of thing. And then from there, you should drop down and then say, okay, I'm gonna assign this to John. I'm gonna assign this to Mary. I'm gonna give her 1 day. Right, and on this day it's due to me or it's due to John, and then that day, next day is due to me, but everybody has a timeline, you can see it, right? And you can see it kind of here, right, where you can see where it interacts, okay? So you can see that as the project manager, right, whatever this task is, it's inclusive of this, right? Or it needs to be done while this is going on also, right? So these two are probably gonna start at the same time. This one's gonna keep going, right? But this needs to be done before this starts, right? You can tell here, this is gonna start here, it's gonna finish here. And then we're gonna jump to the next thing, right? But as this starts, right? This is gonna start too, this is gonna start, this start. And this process here goes the whole way through. Okay, so it gives you that kind of information. And Microsoft project is a really good, it's super powerful. Very powerful, it has a lot of different characteristics, a lot of different stuff that you can use to do it, but it takes a little while to learn and get proficient at it because it has so many modules to it, okay? All right, so again, WBS, right? Get chart, and on the get chart, right, it's very interactive. You can click on it, put notes, and it have another drop down that says who's assigned to it. All the information that you want to put to it, you can cost, what, prerequisites, there's a bunch of stuff, right? But you can kind of see, kind of the timeline of how things fall, what's dependent on what's inclusive of, processes, inclusive of each other, that kind of thing, right? And just see each one, right? Monitor and control, you see that's throughout the whole process, okay? Planning, again, boom, stops here. June, we're starting our project, okay? Executing, right? We're executing the whole time, right? But planning is part of this part. That's the part of the execution that we're gonna do right here. And that's gonna stop, and then we're gonna jump into website design, concept is in there. And so everything here basically is happening in the execution phase, you can tell, okay? So just, kind of idea of what it would look like in Microsoft Project. It's the same thing, but it's just a different breakdown, that's all, okay? So, all right, so let's talk about the levels here, all right? So the numbering is important, okay? So you can see that software product release is 1, right? All the subsets start at 1.1, right? That's the level, okay? That's level 1, this is level 2, right? But it's level 2 within level 1. So it has to be 1.1. Okay, all these are levels within one, right, which is the product release, right, which is the main thing, okay? And so project plan management is 1.1, and then that's the first thing, 1.1, 1.2, see? So that's how things are numbered, basically, when you talk about project management. That way, everybody knows what level it's at, right? Because you can tell, level 1 has 1 number, level 2 has 2 numbers, level 3 has 3 numbers, okay? And so you can tell, okay, what part of the project it's in, right? What phase, depending on, whatever you number it, right? And you can see it clearly, the different components and what needs to happen within that particular, subset, all right? Again, all automated, don't have to write this down anymore, don't have to, do we just punch the numbers in and it basically auto generate this stuff for you for the most part. All right, different approaches to developing the WBS, all right, so, all right. When you, kind of like what I mentioned before, you may have some rules and guidelines that you have to adhere to, okay? That you may have, specifically, let's talk about a construction site, right? And they're putting up a building. And so that is a huge project. If anybody's ever watched construction or been involved in construction, all right? That is a massive project, all right? And there's a lot of safety and federal, city, local rules and regulations, right? Even to the point of what type of grass are we gonna put on the outside? What type of trees are gonna go in the landscaping, right? That's how detailed it is, okay? Because if I put the wrong tree out there and I know that people have dogs, if the dog eats the tree, that's supposed to eat, then they die, guess what? We get sued, right? That's how specific it is, okay? And so there may be, things that you need to adhere to, especially from the actual execution of the actual physical entity, right? When you put the building together, right? I got my civil engineers, I got my architects, I got my, other engineers, my foreman, my construction guys, right? We have to sit down and figure out, okay, what permits do we need? All right? What is the city ordinance on noise? Right? Something you don't think about. So when I used to do project management, I did it for road systems. So if you go out here, you see, the roads in the parking lot, right? I had a team and I would come and some they say, oh, we need to replace the asphalt. I'd come out, I'd measure it, take all the requirements from the customer, and then I go back, I put together a plan. And I would give it to the customer and say, hey, this is what I propose for you. We have 3 different ways you can do it at 3 different price points, right? Depending on what you want, right? How thick you want the asphalt to be. You want it to paint the lines back and make parking spaces. You want more parking spaces, less parking spaces, right? And then from there, once the customer said good to go, I give it to my team for the execution, okay? But there's a lot of things I didn't know about asphalt and doing construction. One morning, we are on a job, right? And I know it's gonna rain. So you can't lay asphalt when it rains. And you can't lay asphalt when it's too hot. If it's too hot or if it's raining, it's that you can't do anything, okay? So I was like, you know what? Let's start at 6. Because I know it's supposed to rain about 10, 11 in the morning. We start at 6, we should be able to get at least one side done to where it's dry, whatever the case may be, right? But what I didn't know is that you cannot start construction in San Diego before 7 a.m. because there's a noise ordinance. And you can't go later than 7 p.m. or something like that, or 8 p.m., 6 or 7 p.m. Right? This is why you see construction sites start at a certain time. They start very early, but they usually don't start till 7, and they have to be done by a certain time, 5 or 6 usually, right? Those are the kind of things that you're going to discuss in the work breakdown structure, right? What rules, what parameters do we have to adhere to when we're doing our project, all right? Review of MBBS of similar project and tailor to your project, right? Oh. They did a project just like this down the street. Right? Or we have a project that we did last year. Same exact thing, maybe a few differences. Dust it off. Let's go. All right, who worked on this project? All right, they still here? All right. Let's talk to them because they probably won't be on this project. Let's talk. Let's go talk to them and see what issues they had, right? What was that, what worked well, what didn't work well, what did they, what challenges did they have, what successes did they have, right? So you can use a prior project as a template to do this project. It's the same thing, right? There's a couple of changes, but you have, take consideration, if you're putting up a new building, a new high rise, right? The soil matters, different things matter, right? But for the most part, it's the same thing, right? Same project. We can use this template that they did last year, the same project, it's the same thing. So let's just use their documents and then use their approach to it, all right? Because we know exactly how much it cost them using these materials. We know how much time it took them, right? Because it's all documented, they finished the project successful, right? We know the building went up, it's safe, it's beautiful, everybody's happy. So this sounds like a good plan. This is the one time you can plagiarize. Okay, you can get in like, okay, we're gonna cut and paste. Boom, just like that. Change some things to make it relevant to the, project you're working on, but at the end of the day, you can do that, okay? Top-down approach, start with the largest items of the project and break them down, right? So, this is really preference, how you wanna do this, right? Some people, like me, I like to handle the hardest things first, cause then my brain is fresh. And then if I can tackle the big things and the hardest things, then I know everything else is easy. Take me quick time, right? But if I have something really difficult, I wanna deal with it first. Because I don't know what it is, I don't know what else is gonna take for me to get it done. So I kind of wanna go ahead and mess with it first, right? So you may do that in your work breakdown schedule where you say, you know what? I know that when it comes down to electrical and wiring, that's probably one of the most difficult parts of a building and construction. So I want my electricians and my wire guys in early on the project, okay? So bring them in, during the whole planning phase, just to make sure that, hey, we're gonna sit down with the schematics and we understand the requirement, right? They need 5G all across the building, right? They need access to, keyless entries, right? We all have fobs, right? What's the power requirement for that, right? Hey, they're gonna have databases where, people can, we're gonna have information about how many cars they have, their pets and all that other stuff, right? Again, what type of server we're gonna need for that? Electricians, how much power we're gonna need? Okay, it all goes back to the power requirements, right? For certain things, especially nowadays, right? We need to make sure we have sufficient power for the washer, dryer, that are all within the specifications that we are allowed to do them in, right? If we're putting up a building, there's only so much power that the building should be using as a whole, right? But if we're building a power plant, it's a whole different, not a power, right? Or a bigger company or whatever, a bigger corporation, or bigger building, right? Bottom approach, start with specific tasks, right? To kind of look at certain things and we go, okay, we're gonna start with this part here, just because, you know what, that's where I want to start. Right, it seems like maybe the easiest thing to tap into, kind of the same thing as the top-down approach, right? And then mind mapping, basically is looking at, what it is your core task is, and then branching out and looking at all the subtasks that go with it, but in a way that is kind of like a tree and a branch, right? So anybody that's done any coding knows trees, right? You got the tree and then branches come out, right? And if it's an algorithm, it's looking for the lowest cost function, whatever the case is, right? But this is the core thing, and then here, it's like fiber optics or something. Okay, we need to get the wires. We gotta get the, I don't know, the adapters, I don't know what else goes in the fiber optics, right? location, where it's gonna be, that kind of thing, right? So we have these branches that kind of come out, right? But at the end of the day, the core center of it is all this fiber optics, all right? That's really our emphasis here. But then what are the things associated with it, even at that small level? Right, because that's a very, fiber optics, you don't think about it unless you're doing it, right? It's not important to the guy that's worried about the garage per se, right? Yeah, fiber optics, I don't care about them. I'm taking care of the garage, or the foundation, right? Yeah, I'm worried about that. I'm worried about the fiber optics. I'm worried about the connectivity, as far as internet goes, especially if I have a building and it's made of, what you would call it, stucco, or made of brick, right? Waves don't, Wi-Fi is not good in brick, right, or cement, right? Cement's not permeable. So Wi-Fi is it sucks in brick, right? So, okay, we know it sucks in brick, so guess what? The routers, all those things, they probably need to be inside, right? We don't want a remote server. We probably need a on-premises server, right, to tackle that issue, all right? Because if we have a remote server, we got everything off-site, the signal may suck, getting, doing the edge computing or doing the cloud computing, whatever we're doing, it may suck. So we need everything in-house, right? Okay, so that means we need a special room just for the servers. If you go to most buildings, they have a special room just for the servers, right? To manage all that stuff. They got the fire room and all that other stuff, right? Right, so there's different approaches to developing your WBS, all right? This is an example of the mapping, okay? Again, IT upgrade in the different components or different branches, inventory update, hardware acquisition, software acquisition. So different pieces of what it's gonna entail to make this happen, right? But you can visually see it, right? We tend to learn better, understand things when we can visually see them by just reading them. So you'll find that a lot of time in project management, you have a lot of graphics. You have a lot of depiction, a lot of graphs and visuals, right? That's another function of matchware. I've never used this particular piece of software. Matchware, yeah, I never used it before, right? But again, you can see it has a Gantt chart, sort of, right? But it's matching, the task name, the duration, right? And then kind of like, okay, what's going on here? And all these boxes, we're gonna learn what all these different things do or mean, right? Between arrow means direction, a circle means action, a square box means process, or whatever the case may be, the colors and that kind of stuff, right? But just an idea of what, what it would look like on your screen. All right, I'm gonna worry about that. Okay, so here's a dictionary entry, right? So this kind of lays out really, what the particular item number is, right? Whatever this is, whatever this task is. Item number 22.2, database update, excuse me. And then it kind of defines it, right? It gives you all the relevant information you need, right? To understand all the terms, understand kind of like what the requirements are to a certain degree, where it's gonna go, what it's supposed to do, all this other stuff, right? You can tell it's pretty lengthy, right? But like I said, when you look at the dictionary, you want to be able to read it and understand all the different components of whatever the task is, right? Without having to necessarily be like, okay, I don't know what that means, right? In the context of what I'm supposed to be doing. All right, let's see. This unit of work should appear only in one place in the WBS, excuse me. So when we talk about unit of work, we're really discussing, okay, what do I consider a unit of whatever, okay? Like I said, what's a work week like? What's a work week? If I say how many days on a work week, what are you gonna tell me? 5, right? Okay. That may be the case in general, but maybe for this project, a work week is 3 days. A work week might be 7 days, right? So that's going to be the unit of work, right? Now, we apply that to everything. When I say unit of work, it means everything. I just happen to use the schedule, right? But it could be unit of work, look, hey, how many cups do we need to produce to be, for this week? That's the unit of work. 10 cups is 1 unit of work, all right, whatever that is, okay? So, but it needs to be identified at only one place in WBS, right? Annotated, 1 unit of work is equal to da. Okay, whatever that may be, and it could change, okay, it could change. Content is the sum, yes, the summary, okay. Item is responsible for one individual, even though many people work in it. WBS, right, WBS basically is gonna be controlled by the project manager, right, or whoever that person, authorizes to edit it and that kind of thing, right? The WBS is not something you wanna give everybody access to. If you're not gonna do it yourself, you designate someone, your second, your right-hand person to manage that, cool. And normally, the project manager will have somebody who's kind of like that go-to assistant who kind of handles a lot of stuff, okay? Each WBS item will be documented in WBS dictionary to ensure accurate understanding of the scope of work, including not included, all right? So again, the definition is important, right? So people understand it on the same level as to what's going on, right? No, I'm not messing with that. To broad guy can see submitted by the bonds. All right, so this is what I was talking about before about mission creep, okay? Sometimes you'll get into a project and the way the scope is written, it's either not enough information or it's too much as far as like, this project is gonna take longer than 3 weeks. Okay, so, or the project is like, we don't have all the resources we need for this project, right? And so it's an example that they give. McDonald's want to, do a with your internet, okay? Everybody familiar with the internet, right? So most companies have an intranet, right? It's just for the company, you can communicate internally and that kind of thing, right? So McDonald's to create an intranet, so you can connect its headquarters and all the restaurants, all right? But after spending $170 million, they figured out like, it's too much, right? Too much to handle. Because of the way McDonald's is set up, right? You have independent owners of each McDonald's. All right, or someone may own a few McDonald's, but and then the independent owners, right? And McDonald's, the corporate headquarters, their function is really to manage the resources for each particular McDonald's, right? So they provide the supplies, they provide some of the accounting on a higher level, they provide all the marketing for the most part, right? The owner can do different marketing things too, but there's general marketing that McDonald's does for each of their franchises. But if you look at how many franchises McDonald's has, it's very daunting to think like, I'm gonna have an intranet, right? Each McDonald's thing. Each McDonald's has an intranet, right? They can all talk to each other within that McDonald's. But then, great, you can talk to each other, but then all the information that's in this McDonald's, in this intranet, the headquarters, McDonald's needs to be able to tap into that and also talk to them also, right? Because that's the point of it. So this is McDonald's in the middle, right? Headquarters and all the different McDonald's. And all this information is coming flooding through. Who's gonna manage that? Right? Who's gonna manage, the person on the fries talking to the person on the hamburgers, right? They want an intranet, they want to talk. What are they talking about? Probably nothing, right? But because the internet, how was your weekend? What you doing this weekend? I heard there's a concert. Man, let's go out tonight. Do I really care about that as me? Don't care about that, right? But if I'm building a system, right, where I want to talk to each one of the different franchisees, but I kind of have to limit it to who can use it, right? And that's probably where they messed up, where they just kind of had it, because of the internet. What's the point of internet? Is for me to be able to talk internally, all right? If there's 100 people that work at this one McDonald's, and they're all on the internet with the managers, right? And we're all talking, but then all that information goes to the headquarters, right? Imagine this one McDonald's that talks to the headquarters, all right? Multiply that by thousands, right? I don't know how many locations McDonald's has right now. But multiply that by that many. That's a lot of traffic, that's a lot of monitoring, there's a lot of stuff, right? Is it important? No, right? I can, if I really need to know something from the headquarters level, I just call the dang on individual franchise, right? I'll see, it's like every month or whatever, each McDonald's sends their financials to the headquarters. Right? And the headquarters looks at it, okay, cool, good to go. Right, we send you 10,000 pounds of French fries, okay? And you sold 9,000 pounds. But the McDonald's down the street got the same thing. And they sold 11,000, right? They needed more. What's going on over here? Why is it that you're not selling 10,000? Why are you not at least meeting the budget, meeting the allocation? Well, I don't know, right? But that's something they can talk about, right? I can go down specifically and say, hey, da-da-da, right? That's financial. That's important because it's the money piece, right? Do I really want that just in a general sense of just people chit-chatting about stuff, right? And so they probably were like, scrap it, right? $170 million gone, right? But guess what? We'll write that off, okay? Well, somehow we'll find a tax benefit, we'll write it off and call it a day. All right. So global issues and basically global, domestic, kind of the same thing, right? No matter where you go, projects are difficult to manage. It doesn't matter, okay? Some countries are better at project management, especially in certain industries, right? Others are not. And so, it all depends on what industry you're in, what country you're in, because that all goes back to resources. Right? If you have a third world country who's struggling and doesn't have any real economy, right? It's hard for them to find resources, right? And so you'll have a lot of, FDI, foreign direct investments, right? And so where's the money coming from, right? And what can you do with the money? A lot of times it's a constraint, it's a limitation, all right? And so on the global national level, not, once you get domestic and you kind of, even domestic, it's a little bit of that, right? But let's just say there's a Chinese company that wants to build something here, right? They're bringing their own money, but guess what? They gotta go through the US government to get approval first. And then they can trickle down to the company they're gonna be working with. Or they can go to the company first and say, hey, look, we wanna do this project here, but we're gonna need your help in talking to the government, all right? We'll go to the government, we'll let them know what we want, and then they'll trickle us down, but we're gonna need your help this way also, okay? So, it just depends on where they're at on the global scale, okay? Even goals, strategy in mind, yes, okay. User input, all right, so when we talk about user input, really, we talk about the client, right? And the one thing I can tell you that is probably the most important thing when you're dealing with the client is to manage the expectations. Okay? Don't promise something that you can't deliver, that you're not 100% sure that you can do, right? And if you do promise something and you're not really sure if you can deliver, you need to be upfront and honest with them, right? Communication is the biggest key when it comes to dealing with the client and the customer, right? And setting expectations. Like, look, this normally takes 3 weeks. We might be able to get it in 2.5, but expect 3, right? So you basically, understate it, right? But you overperform, right? You don't want to overstate it and then underperform, all right? You want to say, hey, it's here, and then kind of like, oh, I'd like to meet your sister. What she look like? She's all right, Okay, or she's a supermodel. And she walks on, she's not a supermodel. Okay? You set my expectations up here, and then when she came out, she was over here, right? Same thing, business. You gotta set the expectation. if you set the expectation, the customer will always be okay, they'll always be happy because you're upfront with them about what it is they should be looking for, all right, what they should be expecting, right? If you promise too much, they're gonna be expecting that. And when you don't deliver, you have problems. Okay, because now it's a disappointment to them. And now they're gonna start questioning whether or not you are capable of managing such a project, all right? If you don't know, if you can't specifically come close to the things that you're gonna say you're gonna do and when you're gonna do them, and those things happen at that time, then you're probably a poor manager. And that's what's gonna come across, right? You're not a project manager, you're a poor manager, different type of PM, all right? Place users on the project team. eh, a little bit, right? Maybe in some of the execution phase, right? Maybe the planning and execution phase, right? You kind of want, the person that's gonna be using, or at least somebody there that represents that, to be there so that they can kind of point out certain things that you're not thinking of as a team, right? Because if it's a certain specific thing that they want, that we have never seen before, we haven't done before, or, it's like, okay, yeah, they're in the meeting and it's like, oh, here it is, and like, yeah, kind of that's close, but that's not exactly what we're looking for, like, it's almost there. And they can give you some input, but that's it, like, okay, so we need to add more stuff here, add more stuff here, do this here, and then I think it'll be good, right? So you wouldn't be able to do that without them there, right? You basically going like, okay, this is what the scope is, this is what the requirements are, this is what the end product is supposed to look like, here it is, right? And then they look at it, and they go, okay, that's not what we want, right? But if you have somebody on the team that's a user, then, they can have more input earlier in the process, right? And it would alleviate or at least mitigate some of the wasting of time down the road because they want to change something or something that we did, they didn't exactly adhere to or wasn't matching up to what it is they wanted, for sure. Conduct regular meetings. All right, so what I'm gonna say about regular meetings is have them as necessary. Okay? I would have one standing meeting every week with the whole team once a week. And then everybody else, as you need them, you have these side meetings. Don't have 3 meetings a week with everyone when everyone's not relevant to what's going on, okay? I don't need the engineers here when we're not doing any engineering stuff, okay? Go about your way, all right? When I need to do engineering stuff, we'll have a meeting, all right? But you have one standing meeting with everyone so that everyone knows what's going on, and that should last 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes, tops, quick, in and out. And then you can have specific meetings with different people, as necessary. Yeah, I'm not gonna mess with that. Use software to assist in project scope management. Again, the software most of the companies use is Microsoft Project, okay? There's other stuff out there, I'm sure. I've just never seen it. I'm just not into project management to that level. And when I did do project management on a regular basis, we didn't have Microsoft project, right? We had it, but it's different in the military in kind of the way we do projects, right? Just a little bit, but same concept for the most part, right? But any software that you can use that's gonna enhance your execution, right? It's gonna build in efficiencies you want to try to use, but the problem with using a lot of software is that it's for some people it's gonna be a steep learning curve, right? Because if you're throwing 4, 5, 6 different software applications at them, it's like, I don't understand this, right? Or, there's certain things you're gonna need to know, right? Certain software we're gonna have to use, right? Specifically, when it comes down to paying, right? For pay purposes and hours worked on the project, right? That HR system for payroll, everyone has to use that, right? Everybody should be familiar with that. But I don't need to be familiar with CAD. I don't need to be familiar with GitHub, right? I don't need to be familiar with, certain, or Apache or Spark, the Microsoft Azure, right? Everybody doesn't need to be familiar with that, okay, because they're not gonna be using it. So you gotta be careful with the software and not inundate people with stuff that they got to learn, especially if it's something technical, which in IT, it always some technical, software packages, right? And so you got to be careful with that. But if anything you can use, software based is always a good thing, and especially now with AI and a lot of automation going on. A lot of things are made more efficient, more timely. There's a lot of cost savings, and it's easier to catch mistakes, right? And to make sure you mitigate errors. Yeah, we're not gonna mess with that. Okay. Any questions? No, we good? All right, so don't forget, tonight, LE's due. And then title justification is due on Sunday, 11:59 PM, all right? So just follow the instructions on the title justification link. You should be good to go. If you got any questions, email me, all right? And I'll get back to you, okay?
Except.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you. I'll see you
Thank
guys
you.
next week.
Okay.
What's up?
It says assignment of just 9 days.
We did click it, is that week 3? That's the week 1.
That's right.
No, you're in week 1.
Yeah, but didn't show up in here.
One way, yeah.
Is it not in week 3? Yes, in week 3.
Two,
It shows up in here.
Nah, this bar here is kind of weird, so don't use it to
But that's what I used to do for my,
do what?
all my learning agents, my,
No, I'm saying use it, but like if it says not complete, don't worry about that, like, because it doesn't always register. That's
yeah,
what
but it's not here.
what you mean, Kyle?
It's not here.
Let me see,
That's the
come here, come here, come here. Let's see this one.
Okay, that's due May 26th, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but the one I'm talking about,
Oh, yeah. Oh, so I said, you weren't here last week, or you came late.
yeah.
Don't worry about that. That was just a reminder for you to think
Oh,
about. Yeah,
okay.
it's just a reminder. Okay, excuse me, yeah.
Probably can live.
What's the, oh, I got it.
Got it?
Wait, no, there it is. Yeah, don't worry about it. That's no grade.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
there's no grade in
It
that one.
didn't show up in the bar, so